What happens when a child is taught to see failure not as defeat, but as a stepping stone to greatness? So what did you fail at today? Sara didn't know it, but that question would change her life forever. There, in the simplicity of a dinner table, was born the spirit of an entrepreneur who would see the world differently, with the courage to fail, learn, and start over. In a world where everyone feared failure, Sara saw an opportunity to challenge the impossible. But what happens when persistence meets rejection? What can a determined young woman do when the world says no? What seemed like the end was, in fact, just the beginning of a journey that, unlike any other, would be written with failures, courage, and unbreakable determination. From a simple question about failure to a global empire, this is the power of a mind unafraid to try, unafraid to fail, unafraid to dream. If you also believe that every great journey begins with a simple step, like, share with your friends and comment below. What story of overcoming or entrepreneurship would you like to hear? Clearwater, Florida, 1970s. Picture the scene, a quiet, coastal town where the sun shines almost year-round and people lead a more relaxed life. Sara Blakely was born into this setting on February 27, 1971. A family that planted different seeds. Sara grew up in a home where the rules were unconventional. Her father, Ned Blakely, was a lawyer, the kind of successful, serious kind you always picture in a suit, but he had a philosophy of life that went completely against what most fathers did. Every night at dinner time, when the family gathered around the table, a ritual took place that would forever change Sara's view of failure. Ned would look at Sara and her brother Ford and ask a question that would have left any child reeling. So what did you fail at today? Imagine you, at 8 or 9 years old, coming home expecting to tell your parents about the good grade you got on the test, and instead, they want to know where you went wrong, where you didn't succeed, where you tried something and it didn't work out. At first, Sara was confused. Dad, why do you want to know where I failed? Shouldn't you ask about my successes? But Ned always explained, Sara, if you're not failing, it means you're not trying enough new things. The lesson that shaped a mindset. This family dynamic created something revolutionary in Sara's mind. While other children were terrified of making mistakes, afraid to try something new for fear of failure, Sara began to see failure as a trophy, proof that she was being brave. Sara's mother, Ellen, was an artist, a creative woman who painted and saw the world through different eyes. From her mother, Sara inherited the ability to see possibilities where others saw only problems. Ellen always said, Sara, there's no problem. There's only a solution that has not yet been discovered. The first signs of entrepreneurship. At 12, Sara was already showing signs of what was to come. She hosted talent shows in her backyard and charged neighbors a quarter to cover. It wasn't about the money. She almost always spent it all buying candy to share with those watching. It was about the feeling of creating something from scratch, of seeing an idea come to life. As a teenager, Sara wasn't the brightest student in her class. She herself admits, I was average at everything. I wasn't the smartest, the prettiest, or the most athletic. But there was something different about her, a restlessness, a constant need to understand how things worked and how they could work better. The first job, learning by doing it. At 16, Sara got her first job at a local shoe store. It may seem insignificant, but it was there that she had a life-changing revelation. She watched women come into the store, trying on shoes, and realized something fascinating. A pair of shoes had the power to completely transform a person's posture, confidence, and mood. A woman would walk in with her head down, try on a shoe that made her feel beautiful, and walk out completely different. It was the first time I understood the power of the right products on people's self-esteem. Sara says, I saw women literally transform before my eyes just because of a shoe. The college, finding your place in the world. Sara graduated with a degree in communications from Florida State University in 1993. But college for her was more about self-discovery than grades. She participated in everything: study groups, student organizations, volunteer work, always seeking to understand people, always observing behaviors. During college, she worked part-time at an entertainment company, organizing events. It was there that she learned something crucial: the importance of details, and how small things can make a huge difference in people's experiences. The Disney dream, the first meaningful no. When she graduated, Sara had a very specific dream: to work at Disney. She envisioned herself creating magical experiences for people, developing attractions, and being part of a world where imagination had no limits. She applied for several positions at Disney. She interviewed, sent out resumes, and used every contact she had. The response: "Thank you for your interest, but we don't have a suitable position for you at this time." For most people, this would be devastating. But remember Dad's question? What did you fail at today? Sara thought, great, I failed at getting my dream job. What does that teach me? The answer was clear. She needed to gain experience. She needed to prove to herself and to the world that she was capable of creating her own opportunities. The job nobody wanted, selling faxes. So it was that in 1995, Sara took a job that most of her college classmates would have rejected, selling fax machines door to door for a company in Atlanta. Imagine the scene: a 24-year-old girl, fresh out of college, carrying a heavy fax machine, knocking on doors at businesses, trying to convince people that they needed a piece of equipment that most of them didn't even know how to use properly. The first few months were brutal. Sara says she sometimes went entire days without selling a single machine. She would return home exhausted, with aching feet, and questioning whether she had made the right decision. But then her father's philosophy kicked in again. Every no she heard, she wrote down in a notebook, not to punish herself, but to understand the patterns. Why did this person say no? What can I do differently next time? The mindset, turning rejection into fuel. After 3 months of selling fax machines, something clicked in Sara's mind. She realized she was taking every no as a personal rejection, when in reality it was just information about the market, timing, and needs. She developed a theory of her own. For every 100 doors I knock on, statistically, a few will say yes. So every no brings me closer to the yeses that are to come. This mindset shift was transformative. Sara began to celebrate the no's as much as the yeses. She understood that resistance wasn't something to be avoided, but something to be embraced as a natural part of the process. The first attempt, the awakening of reality. In the days following her discovery, Sara was euphoric. She was certain she was sitting on a gold mine. But between having a brilliant idea and turning it into reality lies a chasm few can cross. The first thing Sara did was go to a library. Yes, a library. Because Google was still in its infancy in 1998, and began researching everything about the lingerie and underwear market in the United States. What she discovered was both frightening and exciting. The lingerie market was worth billions of dollars a year, but there was almost no innovation. The same companies had dominated for decades, offering virtually the same products. Perfect, Sara thought. That's exactly where the opportunity lies. The initial plan, ingenuity, and determination. Sara did what anyone would do. She came up with a plan. But let me tell you, her plan was admirably naive. She literally wrote on a piece of paper, "Find a factory that makes pantyhose, explain my idea, they will make the product, sell in stores, get rich, it's that simple." Sara had no idea of the complexity that lay ahead. The search for factories. The first reality check. Sara picked up the yellow pages, remember the yellow pages, and started searching for pantyhose manufacturers and lingerie factories. She found dozens of companies scattered across the United States, mostly in the South. The first call was to a factory in North Carolina. Sara, excited, called and asked to speak to someone about product development. "Hello, I have a revolutionary idea for women's lingerie, and I would like to. Are you a designer?" "No, but I have an idea that." "Do you have experience in the textile industry?" "No, but do you represent any company?" "Actually, it's just me." But click, they hung up on her. The script strategy. Preparing for war. After several disastrous hookups, Sara realized she needed to prepare better. She created entire hookup scripts. She rehearsed in front of the mirror, as if she were preparing for a play. She researched the industry, learned the technical terms, and studied how the manufacturing processes worked. Sara turned her apartment into a sort of lingerie research lab. The journey of 100 connections, pure persistence for 6 months. Sara made an average of 3 calls a day to different factories, always at night, after the freelance job she'd taken on to support herself while pursuing her dream. Each call followed a depressing pattern. Sara explained the idea. The manufacturer didn't understand. Sara insisted. The manufacturer asked about. Minimum volumes, usually 10,000 pieces to start. Sara explained that it was just her, that she wanted to start small. The manufacturer lost interest. "Mum, we work with large retailers, not individuals," was the standard response. The rejected notebook. Turning pain into data, Sara kept a notebook where she recorded every call. It wasn't masochism, it was strategy. She wanted to understand the rejection patterns to improve her approach. Company name, person spoke to, reason for rejection, lessons learned after 50 calls. Sara identified 3 main problems. She had no credibility in the industry. Its minimum volume was very small. No one understood why someone would cut the feet off a pair of pantyhose. The evolution of the pitch, learning to sell the dream. Sara realized she needed to completely change her approach. Instead of talking about cutting pantyhose, she started talking about revolutionizing the shapewear market. Instead of saying it was just her, she started saying she represented a new brand that wanted to disrupt the market. She came up with a working name for the company, Bodywear Solutions. She even created a simple business card, calling herself founder and CEO. The moment of almost giving up. Call number 87. After 8 months of rejections, Sara was exhausted. Call number 87 was particularly harsh. The manufacturer not only rejected the idea, but also told her she was wasting her time on a ridiculous idea that would never work. That night, Sara sat on the floor of her apartment, surrounded by torn yellow pages and scribbled notes. She looked at her savings, now dwindling to $3,000 to $100, and seriously considered giving up. Maybe they're right, she thought. Maybe it really is a ridiculous idea. But then she remembered her father's question, "What did you fail at today?" And she realized she hadn't failed yet. She had just collected information about 87 ways that didn't work. The call that changed everything. The miracle of persistence. The next morning, Sara woke up determined to make another attempt. Connection 88 was to Highland Mills, a North Carolina factory she had contacted months earlier. "Hello, is this Highland Mills? I called a few months ago about an innovative shapewear project. Could we talk again?" "One moment," said the receptionist. Sara waited. She almost hung up when a male voice answered. "This is Sam. Are you the girl with the footless pantyhose idea?" "It's me. Do you remember?" "Yes, I remember. Look, it didn't make much sense to me at first, but I talked to my daughters about your idea. And you know what? They convinced me that you might be right." Sara almost fainted. The first prototype, dream becoming reality. Sam explained that he could do a small test run, 500 pieces for Sara to evaluate. The price would be higher per piece due to the small volume, but it was possible. "How long do you need?" Sara asked, barely able to control her excitement. "About 6 weeks, but first we need to work out some technical details." Weeks of conversations about materials, stretch, seams, and finishes followed. Sara learned more about textile manufacturing in 1 month than most people learn in years. The first sample, the moment of truth when the first sample arrived in the mail. Sara could barely open the box. She was so nervous. What if it didn't turn out as she'd imagined? What if all that effort had been in vain? She opened the box, and there it was, her idea realized. A piece that looked exactly like pantyhose without the feet, but made of a more durable material and with better finishes. Sara ran to her room, put on a pair of tight white pants, and tested the product. It was even better than she expected. The silhouette was perfect, the comfort was exceptional, and the product didn't roll down or ride up. She looked in the mirror and whispered, "I did it. I really did it." The name dilemma, birth of SPANX. With the product up and running, Sara needed a name. She knew the name would be crucial to its success. She made a list of over 100 options. Body smooth silhouette plus comfort shape flex fit smart underwear. Nothing sounded right. Sara wanted something modern, sexy, but not vulgar. something that felt innovative. It was during a sleepless night that she had the inspiration. The word spank had always sounded sexy to her, but it was too aggressive. What if she changed it to SPANX? Replacing the CK with an X, the letter X always seemed modern and mysterious to Sara. SPANX sounded like something from the future, something technological, yet sensual. She tested the name on friends. The reaction was unanimously positive. SPANX? What an interesting name. What is it? The visual brand. Creating an identity. Sara couldn't afford a designer, so she created the brand's visual identity herself. She chose a vibrant pink as the main color. She wanted something feminine, but not childish. She hand-designed the logo, SPANX in clean, modern letters, nothing to elaborate, because she knew the product needed to speak for itself. The first batch, investing it all with $2,800 left from her savings. Sara ordered her first production run, 1,000 pieces in 3 basic colors: nude, black, and white. When the boxes arrived at her apartment, Sara felt like a kid at Christmas. She opened each package, inspected each piece, and folded everything carefully. Her one-bedroom apartment had become a warehouse. Boxes piled high in the living room, bedroom, even bathroom. Sara had officially become an entrepreneur. The first market test, selling to friends before trying big box stores. Sara decided to test it out with people she knew. She hosted SPANX parties at her apartment, essentially get-togethers where friends could try on and buy the product. The reaction was extraordinary. Women trying on SPANX for the first time were genuinely impressed. Many bought multiple pairs on the spot. "Sara, this is amazing. Where can I buy more?" "For now, just me," Sara replied, barely believing she had created something people actually wanted. The big box strategy, aiming high with the success of her home tests. Sara knew it was time to think bigger. She compiled a list of the top department stores in the United States and decided to start at the top, Neiman Marcus. Why Neiman Marcus? It was one of the most prestigious stores, known for carrying only the highest quality products. Sara thought, if they carry SPANX, all the other stores will too. But how could an unknown businesswoman with no industry connections get a meeting at such an exclusive store? Sara was about to discover that sometimes boldness is the best strategy of all. The audacious plan, straight to the heart of the lion. Sara researched everything about Neiman Marcus. She found out who the lingerie buyer was, what floor their office was on, and what the best time to meet them was. She prepared a simple presentation, a few pieces of the product, before and after photos, and a clear explanation of the problem SPANX solved. One Tuesday morning, Sara packed everything into a suitcase, drove to Dallas, parked in front of Neiman Marcus, and took a deep breath. "It's now or never," she thought, and pushed open the revolving door that would change her life forever. Sara pushed through the revolving door of Neiman Marcus in Dallas like a warrior entering battle. The store's frigid air conditioning contrasted sharply with the scorching Texas heat outside. She paused for a second to orient herself. The place was intimidating. Imagine a store where every detail screams luxury: gleaming marble floors, crystal chandeliers, impeccably dressed saleswomen who looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Sara looked down at her own outfit, a simple blazer and black pants, and for a moment felt completely out of place. But then she remembered her father. "What did you fail at today?" And she thought, "I haven't failed at anything today. It's still early." Sara went to the information desk, where a blonde receptionist with a perfect professional smile greeted her. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "Hello, I'd like to speak to the lingerie buyer. I have a revolutionary product that I think would be perfect for Neiman Marcus." The receptionist maintained her smile, but Sara noticed a slight frown. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but do you represent any brand we have worked with?" "It's actually a new brand, but do you have a company card?" Sara handed over her simple card. The receptionist looked as if she were examining something suspicious. "I'm sorry, but our buyer only works with prior appointments. You can call on Monday to schedule an appointment." Sara didn't move from the counter. She knew that if she left, she would probably never have the courage to return. "I completely understand," Sara said, still smiling. but I drove for hours here specifically to show you a product that could revolutionize your customer's experience. Could you wait a few minutes to see if she has some free time?" The receptionist hesitated. There was something about Sara's polite determination that made her think twice. "Well, I can call and check, but she'll probably say no. I understand. But it would be wonderful if you could try." Sara sat in a leather armchair in the store's lobby. It was 10:15 a.m. She watched the hustle and bustle of the store's stylish customers, attentive salespeople, the perfect ballet of luxury retail. Every 15 minutes, Sara returned to the counter to politely ask if there was anything new. The receptionist, who was initially irritated, began to be impressed by Sara's gentle persistence. "She really won't give up," thought the receptionist. At 2 p.m., after almost 4 hours of waiting, the receptionist called Sara. "The SPANX lady? The buyer can give you 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes." Sara almost jumped out of her chair. Thank you so much." She was led down an elegant hallway to a second-floor office. Behind a desk sat a woman of about 45, brown hair pulled back in a neat bun and wearing designer glasses. The name on the desk read, "Jana Morrison, buyer, intimate apparel. Sit down." Jana said, looking at her watch, "You have 10 minutes. What's so revolutionary about that?" Sara took a deep breath and began. "Jana, can I ask you a question? How many times a week do you wear tight clothing?" Jana looked surprised by the question. "Well, sometimes. And when you wear it, are you completely satisfied with your figure? Or do you sometimes wish it were a little smoother, more defined?" Jana smiled for the first time. "Go on." "SPANX solves a problem that every woman has, but that no one has yet solved properly. It's shapewear that really works, but without the discomfort of traditional girdles." Sara took 2 pieces out of her suitcase, a pair of SPANX and a traditional shapewear. "Can I show you the difference?" Jana was curious but skeptical. "How do you plan to demonstrate this here in the office?" Sara had a sudden inspiration. "Can we go to the ladies' room? I can show you the difference by wearing a pair of your pants." Jana hesitated for a second, but something about Sara's sincerity convinced her. "Okay, but this is very unusual." They went to the store's executive women's restroom. Sara asked Jana to choose a pair of pants from the women's section for the demonstration. Jana returned with a pair of tight white pants. Sara put them on. First with a traditional girdle. "Look, it fits perfectly, but I feel tight, hot, and uncomfortable." Then she switched to SPANX. "Now look, same silhouette, but I can move freely, breathe normally." Sara crouched down, raised her arms, and walked. The difference was stark. Jana was silent for a few seconds, considering. Then she said, "In 15 years of buying lingerie, I've never seen anything like this. When can you start delivering?" Sara could barely contain her excitement. "Immediately. I mean, I need to organize production. But we want it in all our stores. How many pieces can you deliver in the first month?" Sara did a quick calculation in her head. "I can start with 1,000 pieces and gradually increase." "Done. I want 3,000 pieces to start." The first problem of rich people: not having enough money. Sara left Neiman Marcus, walking on cloud 9. She had landed her first big account. But in the car on the way back to Atlanta, reality hit her. She didn't have the money to produce 3,000 pieces. Her savings were at $800. Producing 3,000 pieces would cost at least $15,000. Sara needed to find a solution quickly. She called Sam at Highland Mills. "Sam, I have great news and a little problem." Sam heard the whole story and was impressed. "Sara, that's fantastic. About the payment. How about this? You pay 30% now and the rest in 60 days. The rush production, turning dreams into reality with the deal closed." Sara had 6 weeks to produce 3,000 pieces and deliver them to Neiman Marcus. She turned her apartment into a mini logistics operation. Sara personally inspected each piece. She wrapped it by hand. She labeled it one by one. Her apartment became a home production line where she worked 16 hours a day. Friends would come over to help on the weekends. Sara would make pizza for everyone, and they would rock SPANX while chatting and laughing. It was like a work party. The launch, the first results when SPANX hit the shelves at Neiman Marcus. Sara was nervous. What if no one bought it? What if people didn't understand the product? She called stores every day. How are SPANX sales? The answers were always better than she expected. We sold 50 pieces in 3 days. Customers are asking when more colors are coming. A customer bought 6 pieces at once. The domino effect. Other stores wanting SPANX. The success at Neiman Marcus created a domino effect. Saks Fifth Avenue called. We heard about the product you launched at Neiman Marcus. Can we talk? Then it was Bloomingdale's, then Nordstrom. Within 6 months, Sara had signed deals with every major department store in the United States. Each new account meant increasing production. Sara had to find new factories, hire employees, and rent a real office. The Oprah moment, the national explosion in December 2000, 2 years after the launch. Sara received a call that would change everything. Hello. This is the Oprah Winfrey Show production team. Oprah chose SPANX as one of her favorite things of the year. Can you provide products to give away to the audience? Sara almost fainted. Oprah Winfrey, the most watched show on American television. How many pieces do you need? Sara asked, trying to remain calm. 350 pieces for the audience. And we'd like you to participate in the program. Preparing for Oprah, the nerves of life. Sara had never appeared on television before. She spent weeks preparing, rehearsing her answers, choosing her outfit. The night before the taping, she barely slept. On the day of the taping, at Harpo Production Studios in Chicago, Sara was terrified. Oprah was even more impressive in person, charismatic, intelligent, with a presence that commanded the room. Relax, honey, Oprah told Sara before she began. You've created something incredible. Just tell your story. The show that changed everything. Oprah presents SPANX. When Oprah showed off SPANX to a national audience, explaining how the product worked, Sara saw her life change in real time. Oprah put on SPANX Live, demonstrated the difference, and the audience was ecstatic. Girls, this is revolutionary, Oprah said, holding up a pair of SPANX. Every woman needs to have this. Within 24 hours of the show airing, the SPANX website completely crashed. Sara had received over 10,000 orders in a single day. Explosive growth. From startup to enterprise, Sara had to hire 20 employees in 2 weeks just to process orders. She rented a warehouse, bought computers, and installed phone lines. What was once a home-based business became a corporate operation. Overnight, Sara, who had previously done everything herself, had to learn to be a true CEO. The challenges of success. When everything grows too fast with explosive growth came problems Sara had never imagined. Suppliers couldn't keep up with demand. New employees made mistakes. Competitors began to appear with similar products. Sara remembers a time when she worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. She slept at the office several times a week. Her personal life practically disappeared. There were times when I thought, is this really what I wanted? Sara says. Success brought responsibilities I wasn't prepared to face. The tough competition, David versus Goliath. Major companies like Victoria's Secret and Maidenform recognized the potential of the market Sara had created. They launched similar products with multi-million-dollar marketing budgets. Sara found herself competing with giants with 100 times more resources than she did. But she had something they didn't: authenticity and a real connection with consumers. They can copy my product, Sara thought, but they can't copy my story or my passion. The differentiation strategy, being more than a product. Sara decided that SPANX wouldn't just be a shapewear brand, but a movement for women's empowerment. She began telling her story in person at events, responding to customer emails, and creating an emotional connection with consumers. She constantly launched new products, shapewear for different types of clothing, seamless tights, bridal products. Each launch solved a specific problem women faced. Investors knocking on the door, millionaire temptations with growing success. Sara began receiving offers from investors and companies wanting to buy a stake in SPANX, offers of $10 million, $50 million, and $100 million. Sell now and you will be rich for the rest of your life, said the advisors. But Sara always refused. I didn't build this to sell quickly. I built it because I believe I can change women's lives. For 12 years, Sara maintained 100% control of the company. She reinvested all profits into growth and refused partnerships that might compromise her vision. International expansion. SPANX around the world by 2010. SPANX was already present in over 40 countries. Sara traveled constantly to open new markets, adapt products for different cultures, and understand the specific needs of women around the world. It was amazing to discover that the problem I felt in that apartment in Atlanta was universal. Sara reflects, women in Japan, France, Brazil, they all wanted to feel more confident in their clothes. Recognition, from Facts salesperson to Forbes. Cover in 2012, at age 41. Sara appeared on the cover of Forbes magazine as the world's youngest self-made billionaire. Her net worth was valued at $1 billion. That day, Sara called her father, "Dad, remember that question you always asked about failing? I don't think I failed at anything today." Ned laughed. "Sara, success is just the result of all the failures you faced with courage. I'm proud of the woman you've become." Sara's journey was far from over, but she had proven something fundamental, that a simple idea, pursued with unwavering determination, can literally change the world. The finale, the coronation of an empire and the legacy of a visionary maturity. When the dream becomes a consolidated reality, it's 2018. Sara Blakely, now 47, is no longer the nervous girl who cut the feet off a pair of pantyhose in her apartment. She's become one of the world's most respected businesswomen, running an empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars a year. SPANX was no longer just a company, it was a cultural phenomenon. The term SPANX had entered the common vocabulary of American women. "I'm wearing my SPANX today" became a phrase every woman understood. Regardless of the brand she was wearing, the company had expanded far beyond its original product. SPANX now offered over 100 different products, shapewear for every type of outfit imaginable, leggings, sports bras, swimwear, even jeans with built-in shaping technology. The empire in numbers, the dimension of success. To give you an idea of the size that SPANX had reached, the company was present in more than 50 countries, sold in more than 25,000 points of sale, and had sold more than 4 million products. Sara employed over 500 people directly and thousands indirectly through its supply chain. The company's Atlanta headquarters occupied an entire building, with a modern design that reflected the brand's irreverent and empowered personality. But for Sara, the most important numbers were different. The more than 100,000 letters and emails she had received from women telling her how SPANX had changed their self-esteem, their confidence, their lives. The hardest decision, thinking about the next chapter. In 2020, during the pandemic, Sara began reflecting on the future. She had spent 22 years building SPANX, 22 years of which she was 100% company owner. But she was feeling like it might be time to consider the next chapter. "I always said I would never sell SPANX," Sara says. "But I started to realize there were two ways to look at this. I could keep 100% of the company and continue growing at my own pace, or I could bring in partners who would allow me to take SPANX to a whole new level." Her reflection was profound. SPANX had become bigger than me. The mission of empowering women could impact so many more people if I had the right resources to expand globally. The court, when the giants come calling, when news leaked to the market that Sara was considering partners, it was as if she had turned on a warning light for all the major investment funds in the world. Blackstone, KKR, Carlyle Group, all the biggest names in private equity began making overtures. The meetings were surreal. Sara, who 20 years earlier couldn't get a meeting with a pantyhose company, now had billionaires vying for business with her. But Sara wasn't just interested in the money. She wanted partners who understood her vision, respected the company's culture, and allowed her to continue running operations. The choice, Blackstone, and the historic decision after months of negotiations. Sara chose Blackstone, not because they offered more money, although their offer was impressive, but because they understood that buying SPANX didn't just mean buying a company. It meant buying a mission. In October 2021, Sara announced that she had sold a majority stake in SPANX to Blackstone for $1.2 billion. However, she retained a significant stake and would remain as CEO. To put this in perspective, Sara had turned $5,000 into over $1 billion in 23 years. That's a return of over 20 million% on the initial investment. The gesture that defined a leader, sharing the victory. But what Sara did on the day the sale was announced was what truly defined her as a leader. She gathered all 500 SPANX employees in a large auditorium in Atlanta. "Guys," she said, barely able to contain her emotion, "you helped build something extraordinary. And I believe that when something extraordinary happens, everyone who contributed should be rewarded." Sara then announced that she was giving gifts to each employee. First, $10,000 in cash for each employee, regardless of position or length of service. Second, to first-class airline tickets to anywhere in the world. All expenses paid for 1 week. The auditorium erupted. People were crying, hugging, and shouting with joy. Sara had distributed over $5 million in bonuses that day. The party of life, celebrating in style that night. Sara threw an epic party for the entire staff. She rented out one of Atlanta's finest hotels, booked celebrity DJs, and served food from 5-star restaurants. But the most emotional moment was when Sara went on stage and said, "23 years ago, I was alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, cutting the feet off a pair of pantyhose. Today, we are a family of 500 who have proven that a simple idea can change the world. You are not my employees, you are my partners in this incredible journey." The party lasted until dawn. Sara danced, laughed, and cried with joy with people who had become more than just co-workers. They had become family. The new chapter, SPANX 2.0 with Blackstone's resources. Sara began executing plans she dreamed of for years. Accelerated expansion into new countries, development of innovative technologies, and partnerships with global influencers. In 2022, SPANX launched its most ambitious line yet. Products developed with artificial intelligence that perfectly adapted to each woman's body. It was the future of shapewear. Sara also began working on side projects, an investment fund focused on women-led businesses, and a foundation to teach entrepreneurship to vulnerable girls. To understand Sara's true impact, you need to read some of the letters she receives. Sara: "I was a woman who hid behind baggy clothes because I was ashamed of my body. SPANX gave me the confidence to wear what I wanted, to feel beautiful. I got a new job, met my husband, changed my life. Thank you for giving me back my self-esteem. My 16-year-old daughter was depressed because of bullying at school about her body. When she started wearing SPANX, she regained her confidence. Today she is president of the student council. You saved my daughter." Sara keeps these letters in a special file. "That's my true profit," she says. "Every time a woman feels more confident, every time someone achieves a dream because they feel better about themselves, that's worth more than any amount of money." Philanthropy, giving back to the world with her fortune consolidated. Sara intensified her philanthropic efforts. She created the Sara Blakely Foundation, focused on empowering women through education and entrepreneurship. The foundation has already invested more than $100 million in programs around the world. Scholarships for girls in developing countries, microcredit for women entrepreneurs in Africa, mentoring programs for women in technology, financial education, centers in underserved communities. "I believe that when you empower a woman, you empower an entire family," Sara explains. "And when you empower families, you change communities." Leadership redefined. A new CEO model. Sara has also redefined what it means to be a CEO. She maintains an open-door policy, personally responds to employee emails, and attends every company anniversary party. Once a month, she does what she calls reality check day, spending a full day working in different departments of the company, from customer service to the factory floor. "How can I make good decisions if I don't understand how each part of the company works?" she asks. Sara has become a global symbol of female entrepreneurship. Universities are creating courses based on her story. Governments invite her to speak on innovation. She has spoken at over 100 events around the world. In 2023, she was named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. In the article, They wrote, Sara Blakely has proven that a simple idea, executed with extraordinary determination, can literally change the world. The family, balancing success and personal life throughout this journey. Sara has managed to maintain her personal life. She married Jesse Itzler in 2008, an entrepreneur who understands the demands of building businesses they have for children. Sara makes a point of having dinner with her family every night possible. And do you know what question she asks her kids during dinner? What did you fail at today? The tradition continues. Sara's children are learning from an early age that failure is just information, not the end game. When we asked Sara what the main lessons of her journey are, she answers, first lesson, problems are opportunities in disguise. My greatest frustration became my greatest success. Lesson 2, intelligent persistence trumps natural talent. I wasn't the smartest in the class, but I was the one who never gave up. Lesson 3, authenticity is your greatest differentiator. Big companies can copy products, but they can't copy your unique story. Fourth lesson, success shared is success multiplied. The best moments of my career were when I was able to share victories with others. Lesson 5, keep your mission bigger than your ego. SPANX grew because it was always about empowering women, not about making me bigger. The legacy, much more than a company today. When you ask Sara what she's most proud of, she doesn't talk about money or awards. She talks about the millions of women who feel more confident because of something she created. My greatest success isn't the billions of dollars, she reflects. It's knowing that a shy girl somewhere in the world wears SPANX and feels brave enough to give an important presentation at work. It's knowing that a mother feels beautiful at her son's graduation. It's knowing that a woman has the confidence to try something new because she feels good about herself. At 53, Sara has no plans to slow down. She talks about expanding SPANX into untapped markets, creating products for the specific needs of different cultures, and using technology to further personalize the customer experience. But her greatest passion now is inspiring the next generation of female entrepreneurs. I want my story to prove that no matter where you come from, no matter how much experience you have, no matter how many no's you hear if you have an idea that can help people and the determination to pursue it, you can change the world. The final thought, from $5,000 to billions, we flash back to that night in 1998. When Sara was getting ready for a party and cut the toes off a pair of pantyhose. Who could have imagined that moment of frustration would turn into one of the most inspiring business stories of the 21st century? Sara transformed $5,000 in over $1 billion, a simple idea in a global empire. A personal problem into a solution for millions, rejection and fuel for persistence. A one-bedroom apartment in a company with 500 employees. But the real transformation was something else. Sara proved that anyone with the right idea and enough determination can literally change the world. The final message for you who are reading Sara Blakely's story isn't just about entrepreneurship or financial success. It's about courage. The courage to see problems as opportunities. The courage to persist when everyone tells you you're wrong. The courage to believe in yourself when no one else does. Today, somewhere in the world, there is someone with a simple idea, looking at an everyday problem and thinking, there must be a better way to do this. For this person, Sara leaves a message. Don't wait to have all the answers. Don't wait to be an expert. Don't wait to have money. Don't wait to be allowed. If you see a real problem and have an idea to solve it, start today. Start small, but start. The world is waiting for your unique contribution. And who knows, maybe in a few years, we'll be telling your story of how you turned a simple frustration into an empire that changed the lives of millions. Because if Sara Blakely has taught us anything, it's that the greatest successes begin with the smallest moments of courage.